Hey everyone, good morning. I wanted to talk just a little bit about this machine behind me. This is a Lintz Eckhardt. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. It's a Lintz Eckhardt machine. I believe it's a B machine because the needle bar and needle tube holder are larger than on an A machine. And today I wanted to talk about replacing a broken handle. This is the original part that came on the machine, and right here the handle was broken off. So I fitted an aftermarket part to this machine. The aftermarket part which I'm using is from Mauser Mannin. It's maybe a $20, $30 part, so it's readily available and pretty easy to just install. There's a couple changes that I made to the aftermarket part to get it to fit and mesh on this machine properly, and I didn't make any modifications, no changes or any modifications to the original vintage parts or machine. Simply added an aftermarket part, and I did two things to the part by enlarging a opening for a screw on the aftermarket part and shortening one of the gears so the gear that it mated to would mate better. So I'm just gonna flip to a close-up and kind of try to talk about what I did to get this handle to fit on this vintage machine. Here's the original vintage part that was up here on the handle. You can see the handle is broken completely off. This is the aftermarket part, and you can see that it turns nicely. It turns the worm gear, so it fits nicely. This gear is aftermarket, and this gear here is original. This screw bolted up and tightened perfectly. I did have to modify the hole in the aftermarket part so the original screw could go into the original bed of the machine. So I had to elongate the hole in the part to be more of an oval. So when I tightened this screw down, it didn't make these gears bind. These two gears, when I first fitted the handle, weren't fitting super, and I had to take this gear. You can see that this screw holds this gear onto this shaft. I had to loosen this screw when the part wasn't on the machine. I had to loosen this screw and take this gear off, and I actually had to take the top side of the gear where it hits the metal part, and I actually had to grind some of it off to make it shorter. I had to grind some of it off to make it shorter so that when these two gears, the aftermarket and the vintage one, went together, they fit more properly. It was too tight and binding, so I had to shorten that gear here, and I did this with my Dremel tool, with like a sandpaper drum and my Dremel tool, and just ground some of the gear off and then filed it with a hand file. Then I used the Dremel tool and a smaller round abrasive to make that hole into an oval. So now the original vintage screw is snugged up tight into the bed, the gears fit properly together, and this is also the original vintage screw snugged up into the bed. That's all I had to do to make this aftermarket handle fit. No changes or modifications were made to the original machine or parts, and now the machine is back up and running.